Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Professor Ipshita Bansal from BPS Women's University, Sonipat, Haryana. Today, we will be discussing about the module Strategic Human Resource Planning of the paper Strategic Human Resource Management. After completing this module, the students will be able to comprehend the objectives and benefits of human resource strategizing, explain the link between an organization's strategy and its human resource plan, and gain an appreciation for the need of succession planning. Strategic human resource planning starts with human resource strategy, which is solely dependent on the strategic goals and long-term objectives of the organization. Human resource strategy cannot avoid the bigger goal of the organization. Hence, HR strategy needs to be consistent, integrated, correlative grid of guidelines and protocol for administrating and developing human resources. The nascent phase of the human resource management game plan is the personnel outlining. The next most important task for managing human resources is designing the appropriate work systems and developing the other functional HR activities. The HR activities like staffing, training, supervision, charting the holistic professional graph, staff separation, labor relation, and union management are divided and should flow from human resource planning process. Moreover, HR planning cannot be reactive in nature, it has to be proactive. Personnel outlining is a proactive progression which aids organizations to certify the fact that it owns the accurate count of qualified staff at the correct time and venue, competent enough to successfully deliver the completion of jobs at hand, which help the organization to accomplish its mission. Personnel outlining makes assumptions for future and considers all the possible scenarios of the future from one extreme to another. In the given uncertain business environment, an effective HR planning is a complex task for the contemporary organizations. Assumptions involved are related to external environment like economy status, technology, innovation, competition, regulations, as well as internal operations and resources. To make an effective HR planning, these assumptions need to be flexible, because if in any event or circumstance in business does not hold as per the anticipated plan, then following the prior or existing plan becomes very difficult. However, if organizations are able to align the strategic goals with HR planning, it gives competitive advantage to the organizations. To absorb the external environmental shocks, organizations need to be flexible in their approach. To accommodate flexibility in the strategic planning, top management and decision makers need to clarify and write all the assumptions. Strategic planning cannot be successful if the assumptions are wrong. Therefore, the top management needs to clarify and communicate all the assumptions and beliefs down the line to implement all the strategic planning process in the most effective way. Human resource intellection. It is not about the number of hiring, firing and transfers or retirement cases. It includes human capital development, their effective deployment and assurance of right person and job fit and right person and organization fit. Personal outlining is a means of future forecasting coupled with anticipation to decide exact flow of skill into the foundation, interior and exterior of an establishment. Strategic plan guides an organization successfully meeting its goals. Organizations develop strategic plans to decide the future plans disregarding the size of the establishment. Moreover, critical personnel outlining needs to become very significant from costing perspective because it helps to understand various costs involved like recruitment cost, training cost as well as opportunity cost with respect to the operating budget of organization. HR planning is affected by external as well as internal factors. External factors include availability of skilled workforce in the labor market and the economy of the country, while the internal factors include promotion, demotion, transfers, exits and retirements. Employees move from junior level to middle level and middle level managers move to senior levels. So, we need to understand the human resources movement. As we can see on the left hand side of the pyramid at the bottom, at the junior positions there is hiring from external environment and also we see that there are losses, that is people being in the junior position itself they leave the organization, but some of the people move up in the middle positions through promotions and also there are fresh entries in the middle level positions from hiring through external environment. In the same manner, in the middle level positions there are certain losses due to people leaving the organizations or due to retirement. But some of the people who are in the middle level positions they move up to senior level positions through promotions. Also there are hiring from external environment at senior level positions also, and also there are losses as we can see in the cases that many CEOs of the companies who are hired from outside also leave the organization after some time. Let us understand how do we link company strategy with HR strategy. We can see in the left hand corner top company's competitive environment which relates to external environment. This is economic, political, demographic, competitive, there are technological trends. And on the other hand company's internal strengths and weaknesses also have to be taken into consideration. So both these factors or forces in the external environment as well as the internal environment, they create a company's strategic situation, which leads to the company's strategic plan to be formulated. For example, should we expand geographically, should we cut costs, should we diversify, etc. Based on company's strategic plan, company's human resources and other functional strategies are formulated. Here we discuss what are the basis courses of action HR will pursue to ensure that the recruiting, selecting, training, appraising and compensation systems are consistent with the company's strategic plan. Through company's strategic plan and HR strategies, implementation takes place and we move forward towards organizational performance. So this is how we can link company strategy with HR strategy. A personnel management plan would benefit an establishment by pointing out relevant facts from various success stories behind effective implementation of rules and guidelines of management. Also, through analyzing loopholes and drawbacks in the current workflow of the firm, which is imperative to keep the workforce dedicated and spirited, thus guaranteeing optimization. The first phase of the plan would deal with detailed analysis of current or incubated strategies which haven't been explored in the past and their corresponding effect on the overall growth of the firm. The second phase will include highlighting those strategies and guidelines which are basic to any firm's blueprint, paving the path to consummate their missions. Some of them are task allocation and management, personnel expertise management, fighting biases and partiality while ensuring positivity, incentives and package fixed in a way such that the workforce is satisfied, inspired and work efficiently, professional acceleration models assessing the internal growth of an establishment, training employees to cope with possible changes in recruiter and recruit mappings, and guidelines and plans enabling gnawing issues like skill allocation, self-learning, etc. to be solved, hence empowering internal development. Critical human resource planning helps in ensuring the solving problems pertaining to the people of the firm that would automatically lead to attainment of the firm's ultimate cardinal and operational goals. Human resource planning is a process of determining and assuming that organizations will have an adequate number of qualified persons available at proper times, performing jobs which meet the needs of enterprise and which provide satisfaction for the individual involved. Different avenues give the perfect platform to develop an HR plan. An important intra-management step could spark a contemporary HR strategy like redefining exercise, a business leveling, joint venture and partnerships. An outside element could also initiate a new HR plan. Example, recruiting more women. Surprisingly, sometimes a wave of bad news could provide as an opportunity for the birth of a strategy, like a business group venturing into education sector to ensure continued supply of human resources in view of future predictions of lack of availability of specific skills. The personnel supervisor needs to make sure that the HR plans are in sync with the ultimate goals and missions of the establishment. Prominently, it needs to be ensured that there is a universal acceptance of the policy within the establishment. For this, the supervisor needs to have specific roles. Role of the supervisor is to discuss and deliberate with all stakeholders on the structure of the plan. His role is to highlight the advantages of implementation of the plan by discussions and deliberations and back the arguments with the example of proven results. Also to ensure commitment and conviction for the plan in the members of the establishment. He is also responsible to pen down the detailed strategy framework, particularly for the upper management, and give logistics to abet the plan so there is a real-time analysis of the result. And lastly, to follow up to evaluate the plan. So let's now understand a critical human resource planning model. There are many approaches to design a stable HR plan. A particular scheme might differ for different establishments. Despite this, an exemplary route pointing in the direction of an HR planning organization framework is broadly defined below. This route basically points out 6 steps to build an outstanding HR plan, of which first 3 are strategizing steps and the last 3 are implementation steps. These steps are institutionalizing the course of planning, creating the HR organizing protocol, strategizing the entire staff, forming and acquiring the required labor force, investing in personnel development and performance, and evaluating and sustaining organizational competence and performance. Organizations should identify the direction they want to plan to flow into and the expected result. Generally, this can be achieved with some form of critical planning. The age-old route of planning is a methodical, top-down, employee-centric. If it is implemented properly, it acts right during modifications in external factors can be quantified. In the case when external factors change patterns significantly, the route towards critical planning modulates considerably. First, the strategizing becomes deft, which implies tweaking in plans happen more randomly and are governed by situations rather than on set timelines. Second, the strategizing is more ardent and aggressive. Establishments on top are not laid back to wait for any kind of change, but are spontaneous in changing their surroundings to maximize output. Third, the strategizing is not necessarily top-down. Suggestions and advice keep flowing in from every strata of the establishment, leading to an increased sense of belonging to the plan. This also harps on the fact that some of the brilliant ideas come from the menial class of the management hierarchy. And finally, strategizing is less volatile and accelerated by line leadership. Once the critical planning is in the tunnel, the establishment should initiate a process to combine and integrate the HR plans, ensuring its success. The end step is to decide on the total number and skill set of human resources essential for the optimization and maximum output. The remaining critical HR planning policies are anchored by these guidelines and practices. The implementation part is to institutionalize a mechanism which would identify and allocate the appropriate skill set, invest in personnel policies, thus having a fruitful employment scheme. The last method rationalizes and supports the performance value of the establishment and its people in line with the expected results. Taking into consideration the strategizing system mentioned beforehand, the particular parts of the critical HR planning are discussed in a detailed fashion. Parts of the critical HR planning. First, defining the planning direction. Second, approximating the total workforce. Third, generating the required human resources. Fourth, investing in personnel development and performance. And fifth, analyzing and sustaining organizational competence and performance. Let's now consider how to define the planning direction. The company's utmost goal is in the core of any HR plan. And if you intend on getting the firm and the human resources in sync, an important question needs to be addressed. Can your organization's internal capability deliver the organization's business goals? Numerous establishments exemplify their human resource as their niche. Top-notch companies continually invest in developing and sustaining new personnel, management policies in order to maintain the standard of their workforce. Also, they provide lucrative benefits, incentives, skill trainings, self-learning programs, and various others helping in getting desired organizational results. They fuse the HR strategies such that the workforce is kept satisfied and happy, which aggregates into the accomplishment of the leader's ultimate goal. Organizations need to take the following actions. Survey the external factors affecting the establishment, analyzing the establishment's vision, mission and goals, analyzing the establishment's expected strategic and overall outcome, spearheading after discussion with all stakeholders, and approximating the effect of any legalities on the establishment. Approximating the total workforce. How do we do it? Analyzing the requirements of an establishment in the future, specifically those hovering around staff requirements, pose as one of the most daunting tasks of personnel supervisors. The life cycle of a workforce strategy is essential for any HR plan and is one of the crucial tasks of personnel supervisors. In spite of this, labor force and workflow strategizing have been focused on since not very far in the past. This fallibility is a result of the need to deploy employment equity, new skill strategies, and quantify the targets. The lagging of some firms in innovating and capitalizing workforce is due to the absence of a properly structured planning module. Workforce planning is a step-by-step method of pinpointing the labor best suited for the establishment's long-term goals and developing strategies to achieve those. In a formal, accurate mechanism for managers to take staff management decisions with the base as the establishment goals, visions, missions, capital resource, and a class of skilled workers. The complexity or simplicity of a workplace depends on the firm's requirements. The strategies around workforce can be inducted for a particular part of the firm or the entire establishment. Whichever route is undertaken, the only thing to be kept in mind is its alignment to the broader strategic goals. Together with workforce planning, the organization should have a stable blueprint and accompanied jobs to make sure the proper flow of expected outcomes and efficiency takes place. Organizations need to take the following actions. Judge and come up with the accurate set of organizational blueprint to back up the strategic policies. Initiate job opportunities, that is compatibilities and job profile around strategic functions. Innovate a labor strategy structured to be the backbone of the firm's ideals and strategic goals. Combine the candidates best suited for the workforce, crop assigned groups, and a list of current workforce expertise which would be required in identifying divisions in skills. Generating the required human resources, is the next part. This phase of the planning process is all about employing, grading, differentiating, training and allocating recruits that is built on the necessities of the establishments of the labor force strategy. A compendious listing of the expertise of the workforce will help in establishing the required training protocol, which would be in alignment with the firm's present and future needs. New employment tactics might need to be incorporated to rope in more skilled HR and members of related groups to keep the required skills intact in the firm. An exhaustive learnership strategy might help in evolving future labor force requirements according to the workflow strategies or necessities. Organizations need to take the following actions. Assess employment strategies in accordance with the establishment strategic objectives. Evolve and incorporate an enriching office space job flow strategy with a detailed analysis of the coaching requirements. Incorporation of learnership planning and being on board or crystallizing professional milestones and appropriate grading. Investing in personal development and performance. Classical way to charter the professional graph, managing promotions and arrears, compensation justifications and staff evolution should be paraphrased and envisioned in accordance to the goals and results as broadcasted in the personnel planning, workforce planning and other strategies of the firms. The consequence outcomes will focus on accentuating and nurturing corporate expertise, sometimes called as competencies, its applications and the attitudes compiled together to add value to the aggregated performance. The skill development legislation imposes the re-engineering of the evolution methodology in various firms. Upcoming theories such as forever knowledge acquisition and absorbing beforehand tutoring must be the fundamental of investing in the staff. Vividly, a labor force strategizing program brings into light that there is minimal expected development in the staff and vertical growth is not very promising. The policies followed by companies focusing on upscaling would be very different from companies focusing on self-sustenance. It is imperative that at grassroots level, specifically for the senior management, the workforce complies with the present task requirement and is equipped with the plausible skill set. This inculcates team spirit and the ability to work in harmony with fellow colleagues. Incentives as a result of performance and substantial contribution to the establishment are the basis of reward strategies. This is essential to keep employees inspired and agile. The components could be a mixture of base pay, bonuses, profit sharing, share options and a plethora of apt benefits dependent on the economic scene and structure, also the firm's capability to render the payment. Organizations need to take following actions. Organizations need to analyze and implement policies, guidelines and schemes in respect of professional paving, remuneration, self-learning and training of recruits, reward management, that is compensation and benefits, promotions and job allocations and classifications. Let's now talk about analyzing and sustaining organizational competence and performance. Some establishments are capable of quantifying the results of various inflows and initiatives in them. Unfortunately, there is not a mechanism available to exactly measure the contribution of human capital in the overall results, and more essentially, the effective result of changes in guidelines and policies in their contributions. Putting in mechanisms to quantify results, highlighting benchmarks of accomplishments, and incorporating theories like balanced scorecard would clarify the result of the critical HR plan in quantifiable terms. Continuous feedback of the strategy would help in refining the personnel cardinal planning itself. Organizations need to take the following actions: analyzing the establishment's environment and culture, incorporate succession strategizing, analyzing the personnel planning scheme with the help of a measuring scheme, example balanced scorecard, and envisioning and modifying HR strategy depending on current scenario. Benefits of strategic HR planning. Successful HR strategic planning provides many benefits for the company, including encouraging proactive rather than reactive behavior, explicit communication of company goals, stimulation of critical thinking and ongoing examination of assumptions, identifying of gaps between current situation and future vision, encouragement of line managers' participation, identification of HR constraints and opportunities, and lastly, but not limited to, creation of common bonds. So students, let's now summarize what we have understood in this module. It is a known fact that personnel management plans must be evolved to be the backbone of an establishment's success path. HR strategies in itself are an entity which could define an establishment strategies and organizational structure. A catastrophe would be when HR policies are evolved and implemented without taking into consideration the missions, goals, and visions of the establishment. An error is to deploy workplace skills which are no way in sync with either the organizational or strategic roles. On the same lines, setting standards for the unitary existence of quantifiable targets without conducting surveys, workforce planning, succession strategizing, and discussions is pointless. So, effective HR planning in sync with organizational goals is necessary for organizational growth. Thank you.